Әміз балай 31-ні дәс қараңа. Success story. Success story. Alright. So let me ask a question. So can you guess who they are and what they are? Okay. Can you guess who they are? Әмісі сағадашылы екран қараңа. Әмісі бұлар кім досылар анша? Қайсы кішілер ома біріншісі. Бұл Sam Walton. Okay. Sam Walton. Sam Walton'ın to'ramsizli bolalar kim o bu? O'rinda kechikkinchisi balki men ma'lum bo'lishi mumkin. Almana belgisi bor ekanmi? Bu nima Steve Jobs. Okay, Steve Jobs. And bu Sam Walton kim o desanglar? Founder of Walmart. Okay, do you know this? Okay. Walmart'ın qamisi bolalar. Walmart hisobda dunyodagi eng chong zanjirsimon tallo bozori. Deymiz tallo bozori supermarket. Walmart supermarket. Shudami? Walmart supermarket. And ikkinchisi cho'risanglar, okay, Steve Jobs, CEO of Apple company, also the founder of Apple, okay, company. Okay, misal company deganimiz nima? Shirkat. Demak, hamda olma shirkatining nimasi? Qurg'uvchisi. Xo'sh, you know, Sam Walton is successful. Can you guess what his first job? Okay. Do you know his first job? And Sam Walton intan muvaffaqiyat qozongan hamda shu karxonchi. Hamda bu Walmart desa, hamda dunyodagi eng chong tanlovdir. Aniqdan mushta tunji xizmatlarning nimaligini fahmsizlar vallah. Okay. Okay, it's, you know, he worked as a shop assistant in a small shop. And the tunji xizmat bo'lsin bersanlar, bir kichik do'konda qanday qilgan shop assistant prikazchik bo'lib ishlagan bolalar. Okay. Demak, eng shu kichik do'konga prikazchik bo'lishdan keyin dunyodagi eng chong tanlovlarning qurg'uvchisiga aylangan-chu. Demak, hamda buni tunji xizmat nima? Okay, shop assistant. Shop assistant in there. What can I do for you? What can I do for you? What can I do for you? What about? Can you guess what Steve Jobs' first job was? Do you know his first job? You know, he worked for a computer company. He was employed in a computer company. And the Steve Jobs deməlisən, bir kompüter şirkətində işləgən. And the employ deganimiz nima desanlar shu yerda yallanib ishlagan. Demak, hamda bir kompyuter shirkatida qanday qilgan yallanib ishlagan. So they have a really long road to success, right? Sizlarning mushuningki mush muvaffaqiyat qozonishga intayt uzoq bir yo'l ketgan, shundaymi? So today we will learn a story about how a successful man began in business. So, new words first. Allah, shu yangi so'zlarni bir o'rganib chiqaylik, sog'lashlar. Ana qaranglar. Avaylimdiroq, hamma Steve Jobsni nima ishlagan? Apple company, shunami? Apple company. Okay, misharga company deganimiz nima? Sanlar shirkat degan gap, company. O'qibanglar? Company. Okay, company. And the company ilgari nima deb bo'lgan? Sanlar firm. Okay, firm degan nima? Sanlar shu shirkat degan gap. You know, it's a CEO of Apple company. And the CEO degan nim degan gap desanlar Chief Executive Officer. Chief deganimiz asosliq yoki bosh yoki oliy degan gap. Executive ijroiya, ijro qiladigan, boshqaradigan officer amaldori. Demakki bosh ijroiya amaldori. Demak, hamda shu shirkatni boshqargan eng oliy darajadagi qo'mondoni, oliy darajadagi boshqaruvchisi degan gap. Shu hamda boshqaruvchisi. Okay. You know, they booted him out of the company for not working. Okay. And shu olma shirkati dastlab qurilganda, bular bir kichik guruh bo'lib, shu darsniki garage mashina to'xtatgan uyda qanday qilgan desanglar boshlagan. Keyin endi mablag' sag'ishlarni jalb qilib, hamda bu payni mablag' sag'ishlarga taqatgan. Keyin endi Steve Jobs yetishib bo'lmay qanday qilgan desanglar, buningga aytib qobil bo'lgan CEOdan birini, boshqaruvchidan birini taklif qilgancha. Taklif qilib o'zi endi texnik bo'lim mas'ul bo'ldi. Bundan keyin endi bu boshqaruvchini Pepsi shirkatining qabul qildi hamda. Keyin endi bu shu paychiqlar bilan hamkorlashib buni Steve Jobsni olma shirkatidan qo'g'lab chiqardi. O'ylab bakın, o'zi qurgan şirketden endi o'zi qo'g'lanish nihoyatda bir nima deymiz endi, nihoyatda bir ichinishliq, ig'ir bir ish qo'yamdi. Shuni ham yarga booted him. And boot somebody out deganimiz. Sanli shu tepib chiqarib o'tish degan gap. Okay, boot. Boot deganimiz nima? O'tikmi shu o'tik bilan tepib ham qanday o'tish, chiqarib o'tish. Okay. Demak endi Steve Jobs qanday qilgan? Endi Steve Jobsning tunji xizmati nima bo'lgan ekan? Okay, he employed in he worked for a computer company. He was employed in computer company. Demak endi bu shu kompyuter shirkatiga bir kompyuter shirkati uchun ishlagan. Shuningda xizmat qilgan, shuningga yollanib ishlagan degan gap, employ. Demak endi Steve Jobsning dastlabki xizmati shu, ya'ni shu kompyuter bilan munosabatlik. Endi savodashlar musharaka employee bilan employer. Endi employee deganimiz shu yollanib ishlaydigan xonimni employer bo'lsa, shu yollovchi. Shu xo'jayin o'zini nima deymiz? Employer. Okay, employer. Employee, employer. Okay, employee, employer. Andaqda keyingi qanarisanlar retire. Okay, retire. Qaranglar, men sizni bunday aytsam, re degan qayta degan gap qo'y endi. Masalan, review bo'lsin bo'ldi. Ya, mana takror qilmoq. Re degan qayta, view degan ko'rmay. Qayta ko'rgandan o'zi takror qilish bo'ladi. Retire degan qayta tire deganimiz erib ketmak. Sizlar qayta erib ketaversanlar ishlar o'tib qana qilsa, oy pensiyaga chiqqanda aytishnami? Demak, endi qirib qolganda pensiyaga chiqadi. Demak, retire deganimiz pensiyaga chiqmoq. Okay, amsa u o'tgan yil shirkatdan pensiyaga chiqdi degan nima deymiz hozircha? Deymiz he retired from the company last year. He retired from the company last year. Okay, and he's getting old. He is going to retire. Okay, and qirishga boshladi yoki qirib ketib bordi. And shu u qanaqa qilmoqchi? He is going to retire. And u pensiyaga chiqmoqchi. He is going to retire. Okay. And the keyingisi nima deyapsanlar? Workshop. Okay, a workshop. Do you know what the workshop is? A workshop is a room or building where the tools and machines are used for making things. And the setup and the workshop. 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 Okay. And that over chocolate bir sexta deydi. Mesela yak sex degan gap. Mesela this is a chocolate workshop. Bu bo'lsa chocolate workshop. Demakchi bu yerda shokolad yasaydi degan gap. Tushunami? Okay. Mesela the workers are making spare parts for airplanes in a workshop. Endi bu sexda bu ishchilar mush aeroplanning zapchastlarini qanday qilyapti? Yasayapti. Demak, workers are making spare parts for airplanes in a workshop. Okay. Next one is save. Buni savid. What's up? Save. Okay, save deganimiz saqlamoq. Masalan, biz kompyuterimizda masalan, Word'ni ishlatib, saqlash buyruqi bo'lsin degan shu nima desanlar, shu save degan buyruq. Save means to keep something, especially money, for use in the future. Endi mishalga bo'ladi, pul bir narsani saqlash, yig'ish bo'lsin nima desanlar, save. Masalan, pul yig'moq bo'lsa, save money. Okay? Save money. Endi bu Tom arab tili qanday qildi o'ziniki pach-prat pullarini yig'di. Masalan, Tom saves his pocket money every week. And saves his pocket money every week. Mana arabda o'ziniki pach-prat pullari, endi pocket money deganimiz nima desanlar, yanchiq pul deyishunami? Yanchiq pul shu pach-prat pul, butun pul emas, shunami? Okay. Masalan, he saved for years to buy a car. Masalan, he saved money for years to buy a car. And bir mashina sotib olish uchun u bir necha yil qanday qildi? Pul yig'di. Okay. Endi qarang savollashim, shu ekrandagi so'zlarning qaysisi yo'qolib ketib bordi? Bu so'zlarni bir o'qib o'tinglar. Retire. Okay, retire. Pensiyaga chiqmoq. Helper. Okay, helper deganimiz nima edi? Yordamchi, shunami? Bicycle. Okay, bicycle deganimiz velosiped. Save, workshop. Sex, grandson, nevrisi, nevri degani grandson deymiz. Employ, shu yallamak, yallanib ishlamak. Company, shirkat. All right, which one is missing? Helper, right? Which one is missing? Okay, employ. Which one is missing? Yeah, retire. Which one is missing? Okay, it's a workshop. Which one is missing? Bicycle. Which one is missing? Yeah, grandson. Which one is missing? Yeah, employer. Which one is missing? Save. Good job. So look. So what was Frank's first job? Frank'ın sizlarning uchinchi xizmati nima edi? Ishxonada o'tirishmi, yoki mashina remont qilishmi, yoki velosiped remont qilishmi? Okay. So I guess it's repairing bicycle, right? So first listen and answer these questions. All right. And so understand what you tafsili bir anlab bo'lgandek bir javob bermasam.
Lesson 31. Success Story. First listen and then answer the question. What was Frank's first job? Yesterday afternoon, Frank Hawkins was telling me about his experiences as a young man. Before he retired, Frank was the head of a very large business company, but as a boy, he used to work in a small shop. It was his job to repair bicycles, and at that time he used to work 14 hours a day. He saved money for years, and in 1958 he bought a small workshop of his own. In his 20s, Frank used to make spare parts for airplanes. At that time, he had 2 helpers. In a few years, the small workshop had become a large factory which employed 728 people. Frank smiled when he remembered his hard early years and the long road to success. He was still smiling when the door opened and his wife came in. She wanted him to repair their grandson's bicycle.
All right. So what was Frank's first job? Frank'ın tunji xizmati nima edi arkadaşlar? What was it? Yeah, his first job was to repair bicycles. And onun tunji xizmati mushu velosiped remont qilish. Onun tunji xizmati qanday qilish? Velosiped remont qilish. Okay, next question. So what has his small shop become? Endi onunki kichik tukuna nimaga aylandi oxiri? Factory mi? It's a large factory and cho'ng bir zavodga aylandi, shunami? So Frank's been successful, hasn't he? Mush Frank intayin muvaffaqiyat qozondi, shundaqmi? Yes or no? Yes, he has. He's very successful. All right, answer textga bir nazar sapaqayli. Yesterday afternoon, Frank Hawkins was telling me about his experiences as a young man. Okay. Tunugun tushdan keyin Frank Hawkins mana o'zininki yosh vaqtlaridagi as a young man, yashash vaqtlaridagi hamda experience tajribalarini so'zlab beryapti. Okay. Frank is a head of a very large business company. Okay. And the Frank hozir bo'lsa intan yo'g'on bo'lgan bir savdo shirkatininki the head of deganimiz shuni 5 yo'lboshchisi, xo'jayini degan gap. But as a boy, biroq u kichik vaqtida he used to work in a small shop. And u bir kichik bir shirkatda ishlagan edi. It was his job to repair bicycle. Onunki xizmati mushu velosiped remont qilish edi. At that time, he used to work 14 hours a day. Aynı vaqtda hamda o kuniga 14 soatlab ishlaydi. He saved money for years, and in 1938 he bought a small workshop of his own. Okay. Hamda o necha yillab pul yig'ib 1938 kelganda he bought bir kichik bo'lgan sexdan birini o'ziga tava bo'lgan sexdan birini qanday qildi? Sotib oldi. During the war, Frank used to make spare parts for airplanes. And then o'sha urush vaqtida, masalan, dunyo urushlari vaqtida u o'sha aeroplanning zapchastlarini yasagan. At that time, he had two helpers. By the end of the war, the small workshop had become a large factory, which employed 728 people. And the bushu urushning oxirida bu kichik sex bir yo'g'on zavodga aylangan. O 728 728 adamni ishiltirgan. Yo'q, 728 adam ishiltirish oson emas. So Frank smiled when he remembered his hard early years and long road to success. And then Frank ayni vaqtdagi jaboliq yillarni hamda muvaffaqiyatga qatnashib bo'lgan uzoq yo'lni eslaganda kulimsirdi. He was still smiling when the door opened and his wife came in. Uning ayoli kirib eshikni ochganda u texcha kulimsirayotdi. Kulga uning chiroyida jilmayotdi. She wanted him to repair their grandson's bicycle. O o'zininki, navrasiniki o'zidan ibot qilib edi. Demak, endi bir oddiy bir tushunib ketdik bo'ldi. Endi shu darsimizniki language focus. Shundan qaralamiz, shundan intayim muhim bu nuqtalar. Language focus. Okay, first one. In 1958, he bought a small workshop of his own. And misharik of his own, of someone's own deganimizni ma'lum hala. Ma'lum birsiniki, yoki ma'lum birsiga tava. Okay, of someone's own. Demek o'ziniki. Masalan, Mr. Smith has a car of his own. Demek uning o'ziniki, naq o'ziga tava bir mashinasi bor. Okay, Mr. Smith has a car of his own. Has a car of his own. Okay. Amsa, o o'ziga tava bo'lgan bir uyni setib oldi. Bo'lsa, she bought a house of her own. Okay, endi miyarga ayollar bo'lgani of her own. Demak, o o'ziga tava bo'lganligi o'ziniki. Demak, endi someone's own bo'lsa, shunga tava degan gap. Masalan, Mary lives in America on her own. Endi miyarga on her own degan by herself. Demakchi, o'zi yolg'iz, o'zilam, tikandek yolg'iz. degan gap. On one's own deganimiz nima? By oneself. By oneself. Okay? Masalan, I live in America by my own. Desam, men Amerikada o'zim yolg'iz turmayman degan gap. I live in this house by myself. By myself bo'lsa, men o'zim yolg'iz. Okay, endi ikkinchisi. Endi ikkinchisi qarasak, ikkinchisini nima deb to'g'risanlar, Frank used to make spare parts for airplanes. Endi bu yerga in his 20s. Endi bu in his 20s deganimiz in one's 20s degani uni 20 yoshlarda. Okay. Shu 20 yoshlarda degani ham shu 20 necha yosh, ya 21 ta 29 bir endi bu 20 yoshlar atrofida, shu 20 necha yoshlar atrofida. Mesela in one's 30s, 30 necha yoshlar atrofida. Naq 30 yosh emas, jumum yari. Degandek hamda. Qaranglar, Mr. Johnson went abroad in his 40s. Mr. Johnson efendim o chet elga o'zining 40 yoshlarida qanday qilgan desanlar, chet elga chiqqan. Okay. Ondan sonra yana başka bir mesela in 1980s deganimiz hamda o'sha 20-asrning 80-yillari. 80-yillar deganimiz hamda bu bir doira vaqti bildirarki 80-yillar bo'lmaydi. Shu 80-yillardan tarix 90-yillargacha 10 yil atrofidagi shu vaqtni 80-yillar deymiz arkadaşlar. Mesela 20. asırın 90-yılları şu Cungo'da gayet zor, alem şumul özgürlükler oldu. Ne diyeyimiz şuna? Mesela in the 1990s, great changes took place in China. Great changes took place in China. Demek ki gayet zor özgürlükler Cungo'da yüz verdi. Hoş şemsen, ama şimdi bir retail bakayla sağlaşlar. Mesela, ne diyeyim? Frank Hawkins was telling me a story about his past experiences, his experiences as a young man. Degende ben şu nimsinler göncensinler da bir asla qağına özanlar bir meşqi qaşnım qısanlar young man. Yani before he retired, Frank was ahead of blah 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 blah. But as a boy, he used to do what?